I do not drive through Nevada at night. Anymore. I know that sounds like the opening line of a cheap horror story, but I am not saying it to entertain anyone. I am saying it because if I disappear one day, I want there to be some kind of record. I want someone to know that I tried to warn people. This happened in October of 2021, when I was 29 and moving from Salt Lake City to Los Angeles. I had accepted a new job, packed everything I owned into my old Toyota, and convinced myself that I was finally starting over. I left later than I should have, and by the time I reached the empty stretches of Nevada, the sun had already gone down. The desert at night is beautiful in a way that makes you uncomfortable. The mountains become black shapes against the sky, the stars look almost too bright, and the road seems to run forever. There were no houses, no passing headlights, no distant towns, and eventually no radio signal. Every station dissolved into static, until I shut it off and drove in silence. At around 11:40, I looked down and saw the fuel needle sitting just above empty. I opened my phone and checked the map. There was nothing. No gas station, no rest stop, no town, nothing. For miles. I slowed down, hoping I could stretch the last of the fuel, but a nervous feeling settled into my stomach. About 10 minutes later, I saw a light. At first I thought it was a reflection on the windshield, but it stayed in one place. As I got closer, a lonely building appeared beside the highway. A red neon sign flickered above it, Black Mesa Gas and Diner. Beneath that, another sign glowed, open 24 hours. I felt relief at first. That relief did not last. The station looked old, not abandoned, but forgotten, like it had been sitting there since the 1960s, and no one had told it time had moved on. The parking lot was empty. The pumps were faded. The diner windows were yellow with weak light. There was no wind. No insects, no hum from the signs. The world felt muted. I pulled up to pump number 2 and stepped out. The first strange thing I noticed was the gas price. $1.17 per gallon. Even in 2021, that made no sense. I was reaching for my phone to take a picture when the diner door opened behind me. A man stepped outside. He was maybe 60, wearing a white shirt and a gray apron. His skin looked pale, not sickly pale, but flat and colorless, like a face in an old photograph. He smiled at me as if he had been expecting me. Then he said the pump only took cash. I gave him $40. He stared at the bill for too long, studying it like it was unfamiliar. Then he looked up and asked if I was traveling alone. I should not have answered, but I did. I told him yes. Something like recognition crossed his face. Then he said, "Do not leave your doors open," and walked back inside. I looked at my car. Every door was already closed. Somehow, that bothered me more than anything else. The pump started running, and I watched the numbers climb while the silence around the station grew heavier. Then I heard a siren. It was faint, distant, and mechanical, like an old civil defense alarm drifting across miles of desert. I turned toward the highway, and that was when I saw lights on the other side of the road. Not Headlights. Not stars. Windows. Dozens of them. Maybe. Hundreds. An entire town had appeared where there had been nothing before. A dirt road led from the gas station toward the town. At its entrance stood a weathered wooden sign, "Welcome to Mercy Falls. Population, 312. I checked my map again. The town was not there. The gas station was not there. According to my phone, I was still alone. In the middle of empty Nevada desert. Then something knocked on my passenger window. I turned and nearly screamed. A boy stood beside my car. He looked about 12, with dark hair, pale skin, and a faded denim jacket. His eyes were wide, not with curiosity, but with terror. He pressed a folded piece of paper against the glass. I lowered the window just enough to take it. For words were written in shaky handwriting, "Don't go through the town." I asked him what he meant, but he looked behind me and froze. The diner door had opened again. The man in the gray apron stood there watching us. The boy stepped backward and vanished into the darkness. The man smiled and told me I should eat before I left. I said I was not hungry. He replied that it was a long road, and something about the way he said road made my skin crawl. I got back into my car. The dashboard clock read 11:59 p.m. I put my hand on the key, ready to leave. The clock changed to 12:00 a.m. Every light in the station went out at once. For one impossible second, the world was completely black. No sound. No light. No movement. Then the lights came back, and everything had changed. The station looked newer, cleaner. The faded pumps shone under bright fluorescent lights. 3 classic cars now sat in the parking lot. The diner, which had been almost empty, was full. Families sat in booths. Truck drivers drank coffee. Adults sat beside each other as if frozen inside an old memory. But no one spoke. No one laughed. No one moved. Then a woman turned toward me. Another followed. Then another. Within seconds, every person inside the diner was staring directly at my car. None of them blinked. My radio crackled to life by itself, and a distorted voice came through the static. Authorities remain unable to explain the disappearance of 312 residents of Mercy Falls, Nevada, on October 14, 1966. Vehicles were left behind. Meals remained on tables. The town appeared empty by morning. I looked toward the town sign. Again. The number had changed. Population 313. I knew, without knowing how, that the new resident was supposed to be me. I turned the key. The engine sputtered and died. I tried again. Nothing. Then came a soft knock on my driver's window. The man in the apron stood beside the car. I had not seen him walk there. He simply appeared. "You have not paid in full," he said. I told him I paid for the gas. His smile widened. "That was for the gas," he said. "This is for the road." I unlocked the door and ran. I ran behind the station, over a rusted fence, and into the desert. Behind me, the diner patrons stepped outside and followed. They did not run. They did not shout. They simply walked, slowly and silently, but no matter how fast I ran, they never seemed farther away. After what felt like 15 minutes, I looked back. The station was still there, the exact same distance behind me. The red neon sign kept blinking. Open. 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 It was impossible, but by then I had stopped expecting the world to make sense. A voice whispered from nearby. Don't run in a straight line. I turned and saw the boy in the denim jacket, crouched behind a patch of dry brush. He told me his name was Caleb. He said the man was called the Road Keeper. He said he was not human, and that everyone in Mercy Falls had once stopped at Black Mesa. Before I could ask more, the siren began again. Caleb grabbed my arm and told me to close my eyes. He said that no matter what I heard, no matter who called my name, I could not look. So I shut my eyes. The siren grew louder until the ground vibrated beneath my feet. Then the desert filled with voices. People screaming, glass breaking, a baby crying, a church bell ringing. Then I heard my mother's voice. She had died 3 years earlier. But the voice sounded perfect. Warm, familiar, loving. Evan, she said. Open your eyes. I missed you. Every part of me wanted to look. I felt tears on my face. Then Caleb screamed through the noise. That is not your mother. The voice changed. Instantly. It became angry, then deep, then something monstrous. A cold hand touched my cheek. I kept my eyes shut until the siren stopped. When I opened my eyes, the desert was gone. Mercy Falls surrounded us, but not the glowing town I had seen from the highway. This version was dead. Storefronts were boarded up. Windows were broken. Cars sat rusting in the streets. Every clock in every window was frozen at 12:03. Caleb said that was when the first door opened. He would not explain what that meant. We reached the town square, where a dry stone fountain stood under a dead streetlight. The fountain was covered in carved names. Thousands of them. Names from different years, different decades. Then I saw mine. Evan Miller, 2021. The letters looked old. As if my name had been there for years. I stumbled back. Caleb told me the town already thought I belonged there. That was when figures began emerging from the houses and alleys. They looked human at first, but their eyes were completely black. They never blinked. They only watched. Caleb pulled me into an old church near the edge of town. Inside, behind the altar, hung a framed photograph dated October 14, 1966. It showed the entire population of Mercy Falls gathered in the square. Men, women, children, all smiling. In the back row stood the man, in the gray apron. He had not aged a single day. Then his voice moved through the walls. Evan, he called. I have been looking for you. The floorboards began to crack. The church bell rang by itself. The floor split open beneath us. And I fell into darkness. When I woke, I was far below the town. My phone screen was cracked, but the flashlight still worked. I was not in a basement. I was in an ancient underground city. Stone corridors stretched into darkness. Pillars rose into shadows above me. Every wall was covered with names. Some were from the 1800s. Some were recent. All of them belonged to people who had stopped. Caleb found me there. He said things did not work normally under Mercy Falls. We followed a tunnel into a vast chamber, and at its center stood something I still see in nightmares. A tree made from human bones, skulls, formed its knots. Spines twisted into branches, ribs curled, like roots. The bone tree whispered. At first the voices were too many to understand. Then I heard words. Help us. Don't leave us. We are still here. One skull near the center opened its eyes, and the face was mine. Older, hollow, lifeless. It spoke in my voice, and said, "You came back." The road keeper appeared beside the tree. He said he offered people eternity. Caleb called it a prison. The road keeper smiled and said people feared being forgotten more than they feared death. Then the darkness behind him moved, and thousands of glowing eyes opened in the cavern walls. That was when I understood. Mercy Falls was not a town. Black Mesa was not a gas station. They were bait. Something ancient lived beneath the desert, something that fed on travelers, names, memories, and lives. The road keeper was not its master. He was its servant. The underground city began to breathe. The walls pulsed like flesh. My name started spreading through the bone tree, like black veins growing through bone. Caleb said there was still a way out, but when he looked at me, I knew he was not coming with me. The road keeper's human face began to split apart. Darkness poured from beneath his skin. Caleb shoved me backward and screamed for me to run. Then he placed both hands on the bone tree. For 1 second, everything became silent. Then the tree cracked down the middle. Thousands of voices screamed at once. The cavern shook. The tunnels collapsed. The road keeper screamed, not in anger, but in fear. I ran through falling stone and twisting corridors while the entire underground city came apart behind me. Somewhere in the chaos, I heard Caleb shout, "Keep running." I never saw him again. I climbed toward a thin line of daylight until my lungs burned and my legs nearly gave out. When the light finally reached me, everything vanished. I woke beside Highway 95 in the morning sun. My car was parked nearby. The fuel tank was full. There was no gas station. No town. No sign. Nothing but desert. I drove to Las Vegas without stopping. Later, I searched for Mercy Falls. Most records were missing or contradictory. Some said the town burned. Others said it was abandoned. One old article mentioned 312 missing residents in 1966, but the file disappeared from the archive a week after I found it. Years passed. I tried to move on. Then one evening, a plain envelope appeared in my mailbox with no stamp and no return address. Inside was an old black and white photograph of Black Mesa Gas and Diner. Near pump number 2 stood Caleb in his denim jacket. On the back were 4 words, "Thank you for leaving." I wanted to believe that meant he escaped. I wanted to believe his sacrifice mattered. For a while, I almost felt safe. Then, 3 nights ago, my car radio turned on by itself while I was driving home in the rain. Static filled the speakers. A familiar voice came through. Weak, distant, but unmistakable. "Evan," the road keeper whispered. "You only destroyed one road." Since then, I have been seeing it again. Not clearly. Not every night. But sometimes, when I look through my bedroom window. After midnight, I see a red neon glow far down the street, where no building should be. Open, open, open. So if you are ever driving through Nevada at night and your fuel gauge drops into the red, keep driving. If you see a lonely station called Black Mesa Gas and Diner, keep driving. If someone you love calls your name from the dark, keep driving. Because some roads are alive. And once they learn your name, they never stop looking for you.